Hey guys. Babe. Babe. It's time to wake up. Wakey wakey sleepyhead. Wake up. Hi. Oh god. Oh god, why is this so laggy? Oh no. Wait, hang on. Hang on. Is it laggy or no? How's the stream, guys? Is it laggy or no? Oh no, it's laggy. Oh god. Oh, what's going on? What's going on? How do I... What's going on? Okay, hang on a second. Hang on a second. I might need to fix something. Okay. What the fuck is that? Why is that so weird? Hang on. Everything is set to low. Seems fine on your end. I'm a little bit worried because I was seeing some lag. Like right now. Is it laggy for you guys or no? We gotta make sure it's not laggy for you guys. You guys sure it's okay? Sure it's not laggy? Oh no? We mean oh no. I mean oh no. That's wrong. That's wrong, Kagu. Is that a problem? But yeah, when I'm looking at this, I'm seeing some lag on my end, but you guys let me know if it's laggy or no. What do you guys think? Is it laggy? Any drop frames? Oh, yeah, just now I just saw a massive frame drop. You let me know, guys, if you guys are seeing frame drops. If you guys are seeing frame drops, then we'll try to fix this. Yes? No? Any frames? Am I losing frames at all? Never seen this game playing VR before? Well? Welcome to First Time for Everything. Welcome everyone. How are you guys doing? Welcome to my kitchen. Yes, my kitchen. I'm going to wake you guys up with some nice, delicious breakfast. Aren't you guys excited for breakfast? Before I start cooking, let me drink coffee. Everyone grab your drinks. Remember to smell what you're drinking, as long as you have for the moment. It can be coffee, tea, beer, root beer, water, anything you have, chat, as long as you're here. Going in 3, 2, 1. Green bye. Here's everyone. Okay, if you guys are not saying anything about frame sign, then I'm going to assume that you guys are okay. Okay, so let me what even is this? How do I... Huh? I don't understand. Okay, here's what I'm looking for. Why do I have to use this? You know, I don't care. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. Okay, so, chat. What? Zamaulini, what? Why is this? And you so weird. Okay, yeah. It's good enough, I'll figure it out. Okay, guys, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Did you guys sleep well? Did you guys have a good rest? You're gonna cook? So, oh yeah. Yeah, welcome to Trash Giri's kitchen. Yeah, I'm currently trying to see what would be good breakfast for you guys. Hang on, this thing is difficult to use. Did you guys have a good rest? Do you have any bad dreams? Don't worry. Even if you had a bad dream, I'm gonna make sure you guys get a good breakfast. And you know what? You know what, chat? You know? You know what would be an amazing breakfast? You know what would be an amazing breakfast, chat? The best breakfast I could make for you? Steak! Yes, chat. Aren't you guys excited for my delicious steak for breakfast? Okay, what did I just do? Am I making this? Oh, I am making it, but, okay, so I only need to click it once. Hi. Are you guys excited for steak, chat? Okay, let's see, chat. Let's see, what do I need to make your delicious steak? Zucchini steak, carrot, buttered mushrooms. Oh my god, that's all. That's everything I need. Okay, this is. Hope you guys are thankful for this. All the hard work I'm gonna put into this. First things first. What the fuck is a zucchini? What's this? What the fuck is that? Is that a zucchini? What's this? How do I tell what? Is this a zucchini? Or is that a zucchini? Does it look like a pickle? I mean, this looks more like it than this. So, oops. Ah, didn't mean to drop that. Okay, just gonna put this here for now. More of a papas con huevos kind of guy. I have no idea what that is. What's that? Papa con huevo? The fuck is this? Do you guys know what this is? Because I don't. Oh well. Carrots. Those are not carrots. Where the fuck are they? Here. You know what? Check, you know what? I should be smart about this. Come here, pot. You're gonna help me, pot. Alright. Oh, next we need button mushroom. I'm going. Is this button mushroom? This is the biggest button mushroom I've ever seen, but red, bell pepper, yellow. Oh. Rosemary twig. Which one of these is rosemary? Didn't there used to be tool tips? Besides the bigger one, eggplant. Oh, it's eggplant? Why the fuck do you call that zucchini? Why can't you just call it eggplant or brinjal? That's the proper name for it. Not fucking zucchini. What the fuck is zucchini? Do you know what a zucchini is? I don't. Is this rosemary? Or is that rosemary? I'm going to assume that this is rosemary. A bunch of other stuff. Right, I'll get those later. Now we need meat. Meat. And I'm going to assume that this is steak. Right. Oops. Don't worry about it. I'm just gonna dump that there. Oh, wait. No, I still need this. Hang on. Zucchini is one. A pickle is before it's pickle. Really? Oh. I always thought a pickle is just a pickle. Right, what sauces do I need? Ketchup, mustard, wine vinegar, salt, black pepper. Oh god. I'm going to assume that's ketchup. That's probably mustard. Wine vinegar? Is this wine vinegar? Or is that wine vinegar? Or is that wine vinegar? This is probably wine vinegar. Salt, black pepper, sugar. Salt, black pepper, sugar, and yes, This is probably sugar. I'm going to assume this is salt. Oh, oh. This thing is getting full. You had food? Yeah, I'm making you guys breakfast. Good morning. I hope you guys slept well. Hi. Which one of these is black pepper? I'm going to assume that this is chili powder and is this black pepper? I'm going to assume this is black pepper. Trick question, Joe. Why even here? Really? Then why are they all? Then why do they all have different, like, different pictures? Oh, you know what? You know what? I don't care. I don't fucking care. I don't fucking care. I'm gonna make you guys delicious, delicious steak with barbecue sauce and vegetables for breakfast. So yeah, you guys better be happy. Alright, take steak 200 grams. This is, I'm assuming this is steak. Season with salt and black pepper. I assume this is salt. It is salt. See, chat? I'm so smart. Did now. Black pepper. There we go. Kinda need to make sure to, you know, massage this a little bit. That looks, 5 or 45 seconds. Should I transfer on a plate? Hang on. Why are the spatulas all the way over there? Yeah. Right. Doesn't sound like it's going well. It's going swimmingly. What are you talking about? Why? It's going amazingly. Don't I need oil if I'm gonna be frying this steak? How do you like your steak? Rare? Right. It's fine, Chad. It's fine. We're doing fine. We're fine. Oh god. Fucking cooperate. God damn it. Fucking can you please God damn it! Come on! Come! Fucking on! Oh fuck! 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 God damn it! Stay. There we go. Me, Mimo. What do you say, where? Yes, where? Where? Okay, where? Come on. Come on. Come on, get off the fucking pan. Come on. Okay. There. One rare steak. This is clearly going well. Of course it is. It's going swimmingly. Anything for my babe. Especially since this is breakfast and all. Gotta make sure my babe gets the best breakfast I can make. Now let me just put this over there. Let's see. Ketchup, wine, vinegar, mustard, water, and sugar. Okay. Let's ketchup, wine, vinegar. I have no idea what this is. I'm assuming this is wine vinegar. I mean, it looks like it's wine vinegar. Isn't it? I'm going to assume this is wine vinegar. That was not wine vinegar. This is soy sauce. Why is this soy sauce? Hang on a second. What the fuck is wine vinegar then? Is it this? Hang on a second. Does remind me of in camp? In camp what? In army camp? Is that wine vinegar? This is wine vinegar. What the fuck? Well, we don't need this anymore. It's fine. Yeah, more plates. Actually, hang on. Don't we have a keep warm? Guess not. Oh well. Alright, so what we need tomato, wine vinegar, dash of mustard, some water. Where's the sink? Where the fuck is the sink? Oh, right over there. Don't spill now. Okay. Why can't you rest one day? Time for you to eat chicken. Oh, you're having chicken? Good luck. Sugar. Oh, fuck it. Hang on. Hang on. That was my covered. Don't worry about it. There's your sugar and sweet brown pepper powder. It's this, right? This is... same difference. Oh, I need chili flakes. I don't have chili flakes. Hang on. I assume this is chili flakes. Just gonna add a little bit of zest and oomph to your breakfast, babe. Salt and black pepper. There we go. Take steak, drizzle in mixture. What does that mean? Does that mean this? Come on, steak, steak. Get fucking, god damn it, steak. Get out of the fucking plate. Steak, get out. Okay, you know what? Yeah, it's a mixture. It's fine. Right, now I need knife. Where's the knife? Where the fuck is the knife? Hello? Knife? Mr. Knife? Are you here? Mr. Knife? Mr. Knife? Oh wait, oh it's right here. Oops. Okay, got the knife. Oops, don't worry about this chair. Don't worry about it. Yes, I might be blind. A little bit blind, but it's fine. It's fine, Chad, it's fine. It's fine. I need to take all the bell peppers and cut into quarter. Is there any difference between these two? No idea. Alright. How? Come here. Come here. Fuck. Okay, you know what? This'll do. Come on. There we go. Get in there. Okay, good. These are in quarters. Oops, it's fine. It's fine. go. Perfect quarters for you guys. Oops. Get over here. Oops. Perfect. Carrot cut into pieces 14. Transfer onto a plate, serve hot. That's gonna go with the... You know, I'm going to... This doesn't look right. There's probably more, isn't there? Looks better. Hi. I'm skipping steps? Yeah, I know. I'm skipping some steps because, I didn't have enough space to handle the carrots. So now we're gonna do the carrots, zucchini, and button mushroom. Oh god damn it. I said cut. There we go. Oops. I'm gonna give you guys the best part of the carrot. Alright. Transfer on a plate of hot. Garnish with rosemary twig. I assume this is rosemary. There we go. Here it is, Chad. Your delicious breakfast. I'm going to try to very carefully move this over to... Wait, hang on a second. I should grab this with my... There we go. Now how do I do? Okay. Here you go, guys. Serving your delicious barbecue sauce steak for breakfast. Guys, what's that? What's this? Why? What's the meaning of this? Why is this? Why is taste sweet so low? You have an explanation? Guest complaints? What are you trying to say? That was dill. Undercooked. I was supposed to cook them? Oh well. Oh well. It's fine, Chad. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, Chad. You know why? You know why? Taste was rated so low, Chad. You know why, Chad? You know why? It's clearly because you guys are still hungry. You guys want more. That's why. That's why you guys rated me so low. You want more food. So let's give you more delicious breakfast food. Yeah, let's give you more delicious meat. You guys clearly need more protein. You gave me a bad rating because you guys are still hungry. So let us feed you more meat, more delicious meat. Yes. Yes. Where did the pot go? Right, here it is. Let's see here. Pork tenderloin. I'm going to assume that this is pork tenderloin. Thyme twig. What the fuck is thyme? Is that thyme? Is this thyme? I'm gonna assume this is thyme. Red cabbage. What? Why did they call it red if it's purple? Oh well. Yeah, you know what? You gotta go to work. Love you, bye. Why? What? No. No, come back. I'm preparing more food for you. What the fuck are potato dumplings? Hang on. Is it this? I guess this is potato dumpling. Hang on, this bowl, this thing is full. Hang on, let me put the stuff here. Get rid of that. Right, so I need some potato dumplings. They said, right? I'm going to assume that these are dumplings. Right. Olive oil. Bavarian beer vinegar. What the fuck is that? Don't worry about it, Jared. This looks most like beer. I'm going to assume this is Bavarian beer vinegar. Red currant. It's fine. I can order more. I'm going to assume this is red currant jelly. Maybe. Or is that red currant jelly? How the hell are you supposed to tell the difference? Maybe it's this one. Now for safety's sake, I'm just gonna put this here first. There we go. Let the food trauma start. Oh, trauma? What do you mean by trauma? Oh, you mean you guys are just being overloaded with love, right? And that's why you guys are getting traumatized. You guys are not used to it yet, but don't worry. Soon enough, you guys will learn to like it. Everyone learns to like it eventually. You just put this here. How the hell is that olive oil? That looks more like lemons. There we go. We got our new Bavarian beer vinegar. Oops. Right, what do we need next? We need red colored jelly. What else? Oh, can't navigate that menu. Red colored jelly, salt, black pepper. Alright, yeah, the rest are fine. There we go. Now let's see. Take pork tenderloin, seasoned with salt and pepper. And make sure we spread it out a little bit. There we go. Oops. Need to make sure I don't accidentally press anything on the menu. So let me do this, I believe. Yes. Okay, there we go. Drizzle and olive oil. Transfer into a baking tray. Olive oil? Is that enough olive oil? I think it's enough, right? Yeah, I'm sure it's enough. Baking tray? Is this a baking tray? I'm going to assume yes. Wait for 100 seconds. There we go. Now be a good pork tenderloin and bake for my darling. Oop. Turn on, please. There we go. Add to a deep plate currant jelly and Bavarian beer vinegar. We're going to work on this while the pork tenderloin is cooking. Is this red currant jelly? Going to assume yes. Wait, we need more. There we go. Perfect. Transfer into plain pork tenderloin. Drizzle in mixture. I don't know what that means. Drizzle in the mixture. Oh well. Is it done? Looks done. Here we go. It's fine, Chad. I can touch this with my bare hands. Off we go. I'm wearing gloves, you see, so it's fine. I can hold that piping hot baking tray in my bare hands. Don't worry about it. Add to a deep plate. Transfer onto the plate. Pork tenderloin drizzle in mixture. What the fuck does that mean? Is this drizzling? I can tell this is drizzling. Is it drizzled? We'll transfer to a plate. Maybe drizzling is more do this and then that's drizzling, right? I'm going to assume so. Bake for 30. Oh, we need to bake it again. At the baking tray go. Here we go. Back into the oven you go. Get in there, bitch. Cut pork tenderloin into pieces. I'll probably do that later. Transfer onto the plate, serve hot. The plate probably shouldn't be covered in soup, right? There we go. Cut red cabbage into pieces. We'll cut the red cabbage while the pork is going. Get fucking. Go, come on. Fuck. Come on. Get. Come on. Come on. Come on! Come on! Cut, damn it! Cut! Come on! Cut! Fucking... Okay, good enough. I think the box done. Get out of here. Add to a pan. Fry. Red currant jelly. Do I add all of the cabbage? This is a lot of cabbage. Okay, I guess I add a lot of it. I don't think I'm supposed to add all of it though. I'll add a bunch. We'll cook enough so that we can garnish the plate. There we go. Drizzle is like a fanboy mini decay.
What?
I don't know how to translate that into what I'm doing here. Come on. Come on. Come on. Good enough. Add the pot salt and the potato dumplings. Right. Time for us to actually make the potato dumplings.
But is 5 dumplings enough?
I think you need more, chat. After all, you guys gave me that bad review because you guys were still hungry after I fed you, so let me just get more.
That's not what I wanted.
God damn it! Ah! There we go. Lots of dumplings for you guys. Da, da, da.
Open!
Damn it!
Open!
Why?
Why aren't you opening?
God damn it!
Fucking! Come on!
There we go! Hi. Grab the fucking saw!
Oop.
Oh, oh, fuck off. There we go.
Garnish with
Thyme twig. I'm going to assume this is thyme.
There we go. Hello, Lloyd.
Welcome. How are you guys doing?
I'm waking you up with a nice, delicious breakfast.
Hope you guys are excited.
It's made a weird sound.
Just now I made a delicious steak for breakfast, but you guys came to it back to me saying that you guys didn't like the taste, but obviously that's code for you guys want more food. So,
We're making more food, chat.
more food. More food. This is probably fine, right?
These are potato dumplings, right? They kind of look more like tofu than potato dumplings.
Ow. Oops. Oops. I'm hitting the edge of my play space. Alright. Here is my delicious currant glazed pork tenderloin with red cabbage and thyme dumplings. There you go, Chad.
Thyme dumplings? But all we did with the dumplings was salt and boil them.
How do you thyme if
You know what, I'm not gonna...
not gonna question it? Fuck off, you're uncooked. No uncooked food for my darling. Okay, here we go. See, this is what you guys returned to me before. But it's fine, Jen. It's fine. I know it just... You guys were just hungrier, so... Here we go. Enjoy! What the fuck? Why? Why? Zero taste? What? What the fuck?
Red point. Black pepper too much.
Red currant jelly, I know.
Red wine. Wait, that was red wine? Not red currant jelly?
What the fuck is red?
Wait, those are scallops? Wait, what?
Wait, what? Those are scallops?
Huh? Wait.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
These are fucking scallops? If these are scallops, then what the fuck are potato dumplings? This doesn't look like potato dumpling.
What? Huh?
What? Was I supposed to make them out of potatoes? No, the
fucking thing just...
told me to get potato dumplings.
What the fuck? Huh? Huh? Huh?
What?
I'm confused. How the fuck was I supposed? Is this a potato dumpling?
To be honest, this looks more like a char siu pao than a potato dumpling.
Huh? Is there a food ingredient I'm missing? Are these potato dumplings? Are these the fucking potato dumplings? These are the potato dumplings, aren't they? Fuck, these are the potato dumplings. And those are fucking scallops. How am I supposed to tell the difference? What the fuck? God damn it! Yeah! Destroyed because the fucking game tricked me. That wasn't my fault, chat. That wasn't my fault. The game fucking tricked me. It's fucking... How was I supposed to know those are scallops? I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. That wasn't my fault. Game fucking tricked me. It's fine. It's fine, Chad. It's fine. It's fine. I'll make up for it. I'm gonna serve you something else. I'm not gonna let this fucking game trick me with its nonsense. Fucking potato dumpling scallop lookalike ass. Fucker. Fucker. Fucking get out of here. Fucking red cabbage. That's purple. Come on. Come on. Get up here. Gotta serve you something else. Something that the game won't be able to trick me into thinking it's not what it is. Fucking the fuck out of here, fucking potato dumplings. Like you fucking fuck this game. Fucking potato dumplings, my ass. God fucking damn it. Fucking. Let's try this instead. No fucking potato dumplings tricking me. Here, no. Only pork chops and potatoes. Normal potatoes. Yes, normal potatoes. Fuck this game for fucking tricking me. Let me drink coffee. I need coffee after that. Fuck this game. Got that. Okay, clean for everyone. Cheers. Alright, now, let us go and fucking get over here. Trying to prepare you guys another food, and this time, no fucking. Oh wait, hang on, I haven't clicked order yet. There we go. Here we go. We'll have ourselves some delicious pork chops with fried egg and lemon baked potatoes. You know, this is actually the kind of breakfast I would enjoy. Fried egg, potatoes, pork chops. This is actually something I would eat for breakfast. Hope you guys appreciate this. Pork chop. And pork chop is That one, right?
You better not fucking lie to me, game. I swear, if you lie to me again, fuck, I'm gonna fucking blow up the damn kitchen. I swear. Oregano twig.
Thyme twig.
Wait, what does oregano look like?
Huh. I'm going to assume that that's oregano and thyme.
Egg?
Some eggs.
Let's get you guys some.
Delicious eggs.
Oops!
That's fine. It's fine, it's fine. I'll clean it up later. Sunflower oil.
This looks like sunflower oil.
You better not fucking lie to me, game.
Let me just.
Put this further away because we don't need this anymore.
At least I don't think we still need this. God damn it.
God fucking.
Oh god fucking!
It's fine, it's fine.
I'm very good at picking up
Eggshells from food. Trust me,
I've crunched into a lot of eggshells as a kid.
I know how to get rid of them. Chicken broth, lemon juice.
Lemon juice.
I'm going to assume this is chicken stock.
Olive oil, we have those.
Black pepper, dry thyme.
Herb de Provence. Right? Dried thyme and black pepper.
I'll put those over there first.
Just dried thyme?
I'm assuming. Chicken stock, lemon juice.
Hop de Provence. Oh, baguette. 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 Got some baguette.
Herbs.
You know, I just saw this shadow on the floor and I thought that was some weird, scary shadow creature.
In my VR. But it's just a shadow of the pot. Silly me still getting jump scared by
cooking game.
this is a cooking game.
Just an ordinary cooking game, chat. This isn't horror.
This is love. Love cooking game.
Let's see. Season with salt, black pepper, and thyme dry.
Alright. Just a little more. There we go.
Add to pan
sunflower oil and pork chop.
Give me that. Okay.
I assume this is sunflower oil.
That is not sunflower oil.
There we go. What the fuck is sunflower oil? Is there anything here that looks like it's sunflower? It's this, isn't it? Yep. Fry for 90 seconds on each side.
Right. Time to
Fry our pork chop chop.
just lay it in carefully.
God, fucking. Oh my god. Come on. Come the fuck on. Pork!
You're not fucking cooperating with me.
Need to cook delicious food for my babe. How long is it to fry for? 90 seconds.
Oh god. Fucking. Come on. Fucking.
Come on. Oh, oh, fuck, fuck, fuck. Hang on, hang on. Let me just. Oh, hang on.
Get back in the fucking pan, bitch. Oh, go fucking. What? God, no. Flip. God, fucking.
Come on.
Come on. Flip. Goddamn. Okay. Oh, what? Excuse me? No. Fucking. How the hell did. Come on. Get fucking.
There we go. Don't you love pork chop?
Yeah, I love pork chops too. Although I'm more into.
Tonkatsu?
Fried pork chops.
Fried breaded pork chops. Quite nice. But
Man, it's fine though. Even though I prefer fried pork chops with rice.
tonkatsu style? I don't mind giving you guys.
Oh, what? Excuse me?
I'm giving you pork chops with
That
fried egg and
lemon baked potatoes actually sounds amazing.
I would like to try this someday.
I'm gonna make sure this pork is cooked properly, Chef, because
It's very important to make sure that pork is cooked properly.
Fucking flip. Fucking flip. Fucking. God damn it. Yeah. Yee.
That's still there.
God fucking. Come on. Flip one more time. I need to make sure to cook the other side. God fucking. Flip. Ooh, oh, fucking. You gotta be shitting me. Sorry, chat. 5-second rule. And besides, if there's any germs on there,
The cooking will kill it, so okay. Just gonna a little more.
I think that'll do.
Right, now what do we do with this?
Transfer into a plate so hot.
Right,
There we go.
there. Now, next part.
The lemon baked potatoes. I'm actually quite interested in this.
Thick potatoes, 300 grams.
How much is 300 grams of potatoes? How many potatoes is 300 grams?
Maybe 3 potatoes. So I'll go get one more. There you go. I'm gonna get a baking pan. There we go. Bake for 40 seconds.
Pre-bake.
Preheat the oven. We've already done that.
So we just need to bake this for
40.
fucking close. There we go.
While that's baking,
Let us see. What do I need to prepare? Deep plate chicken broth and lemon juice. Oh wait, I already have a deep plate over there.
so just use this for now.
That's olive oil. Wait, did I not prepare lemon juice?
I don't think I prepared lemon juice.
No wait, I did. Where did I put it?
There it is. Naughty little lemon juice. Try to hide from me.
How much do I need?
A lot more. There we go. Chicken stock. There we go. Alright. Take the potatoes. The potatoes should be done by now.
Right?
Don't worry, Chad. I'm wearing gloves. I'll be fine. grabbing this super hot baking tray directly out of the oven.
Just gonna put this there.
Now this is do.
Drizzle in mixture and cut.
I still don't know what this means.
What the fuck does it mean to drizzle in mixture?
I have no clue what this means. Oh well.
Just gonna do what I keep doing, chat.
This is all to give you guys your delicious breakfast.
God fucking.
God fucking grab the potato.
God damn it.
There we go. Hello Naomi, welcome. You're just in the middle of breakfast. You're in luck.
I'm about to make some delicious pork chops with fried egg and lemon baked potato.
Hope you're looking forward to it. Cut potato into halves.
Halves, huh?
Alright. I'm going to assume that the potatoes have been
Drizzled? Whatever the fuck.
that means. 2 and 3. There we go.
Oregano twig.
And potato.
Oh, I need the baking tray again. Come here. I'm not done with you yet. Get back here. Fucking.
There we go. Get the fuck out of here. So I add oregano twigs to the baking tray, so
Wait. Which one is oregano twigs again? No, those aren't oregano.
these are oregano. There we go. Back into the oven you go.
This is the oven, right?
I'm going to assume that this is the oven.
Get in there.
Right. Well, that's baking for 40 seconds.
Crack egg into pan, season with salt, black pepper.
Add pan to the olive oil.
Right, so now we need to make eggs.
I need more olive oil. There we go.
Season with salt, black pepper, the pava, ha ha, begin!
2 eggs.
Get some salt.
There we go.
Black pepper. And herb de pava. Ha ha, begin! Ha ha, begin!
There we go.
Now we cook.
Oh, that's fine.
Now to retrieve the potatoes.
Oh, it looks so good, chat.
Can't wait till you guys get to.
Try this.
I've never had eggs with ha ha, begin! Herbs before.
Oh.
Okay, we go. Get into the. Ah! Okay, you know what? I'm just going to get rid of the oil first.
Alright. There we go. And now for some potato wing. Oh, brigade! Season, garnish with thyme. Here we go. Garnish with thyme chicken. There we are. Delicious pork chop with fried egg and lemon baked potatoes. Did we actually use lemon though? We did. Yeah, we did actually. Oh. Never really heard of this, but hope you guys enjoy. Here comes your third breakfast course. And forgive me for this shitty currant glazed pork tenderloin with red cabbage and thyme dumplings, which turned out to be fucking scallops. The game fucking tricked me. That's not my fault. The game tricked me. So. It's not my fault, chat. Not my fault. So now, you guys are getting delicious pork chop with fried egg and baked potatoes. Enjoy! Enjoy! That's more like it. But, even though the taste has gone up since the first one, you guys still aren't giving me full stars. That means you want more? You guys want more food, chat? You guys want more? Not enough salt? Really? Not enough salt, whatever. Not enough chicken broth. Too much salt. Too much black pepper. That was rosemary? Oh. Oops. I might have accidentally garnished it with rosemary instead of thyme, but it's fine. Just garnish. Wrong amount of product? What do you mean wrong amount of product? What? I gave you an extra egg because you. I figure you guys want more. Chat. Overcooked? What do you mean overcooked? It's not overcooked. I mean, yeah, sure, I guess it's pleased, but you know what, chat? You guys are telling me that you guys want more food. So let's go and make you guys more food. I'm gonna keep feeding you guys until you guys have a fully satisfied for breakfast. Oh, I wonder what the fourth course should be. You know what? I think a soup is in order. Question is, which soup do I force down your throat? I mean, feed you guys. What is this? Caldo verde. I have no idea what that is. Yeah, you know what? Corn, scallops, and bacon chowder. That sounds nice, right? A nice creamy soup as the fourth course of your breakfast. Let's see here. What do you guys want? Onions?
That's garlic. This is onions.
You see, chat, I'm smart. I know my way around the kitchen.
Some potatoes.
Corn on the cob.
Is that really all the corn we have?
This corn looks stinky.
Isn't corn on the cob supposed to be bigger?
Like, double the size.
This looks really, really dinky.
Guess this is all we got.
That's fine. I'll get more corn on the cob.
In that case.
Let's get you guys some.
Carrots. It's pretty full. Let me go and put the ingredients over here.
Don't need this anymore.
I don't need that. Put that over there. Drop this here. Get more stuff. Da, 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 da. Bacon and scallop rind.
We're gonna get the ingredient that fucked me over earlier.
Let me just.
It's not the bacon that fucked me over though.
It's these things.
These fucking scallops.
They screwed me.
Pretending to be fucking
Pork dumplings.
I mean, potato dumplings when they were actually fucking scallop. Oh, fucking. Get over here.
There we go.
You snuck onto my dish earlier. You're not gonna get away now, bitch. I need sour cream and clarified butter.
Sour cream is.
I think this is
Sour cream?
that's sour cream, right?
I'm going to assume that's sour cream. Alright. Put this over here. Put that there. Alright. Now, let's see. What do I need to do to make you guys some delicious corn, scallop, and bacon chowder?
That actually sounds delicious, except for the scallops. I would eat that, but not the scallops. Transfer onto plate. Potato, onion, and carrot.
How much?
I'm not sure how much.
Is that? Do we need more?
I think we need more carrot.
Yeah, I need more carrot.
Have one more.
Just in case. Alright.
We need to put these on a plate.
Move these aside first. Drizzle and clarified butter.
This is clarified butter, right?
I actually took this earlier. I tried to sneak onto our dish, but
This is, I'm assuming this is drizzling.
I don't really know. Still, what it means by drizzle. Actually, thinking about it, I dunked the entire potatoes into the fucking mixture earlier. Or the lemon dish, and yet somehow it didn't work. What the fuck? Is it not enough? Even though I dunked the whole potatoes in the mixture. How does... I guess I gotta pour the mixture onto the food rather than the other way around. Yeah, that's stupid. Oh well. Cut into pieces. This is my last resort. Complication. No, yeah, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. This is my last resort. Blah 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 blah. I don't even know who sang that song. Come on. Come on. There's gonna be a soup. We need smaller chunks. Smaller. Doesn't have to be uniform, but just needs to be smaller. Come on. Come on! Come on! Yeah. Okay, good enough. We need to cut the onions next. Sure, we're just going to cut all of them. Because I'm going to assume that they all need to be cut. Come on. Come on, get cut. Fucking. Come on, bitch. Fucking. Why is my controller vibrating? Hang on, this is supposed to vibrate like this. Get off the fucking knife! There we go. Oops. Potatoes next. Come on, why aren't you cutting? God damn it! Ah, fine. You wanna be cut? I'm not gonna cut you anymore. Cut, damn it, cut! Alright. Transfer into pan. Fry for 30 seconds. All of it? Going into a pan? Really? Okay. It's gonna be difficult. Carefully. Oop. Oh, come on. Get in there. Mostly gone to the pan. Just some stray stuff, but it's fine. Fine, Chet, it's fine. It's fine. Hello, welcome to breakfast. I'm cooking breakfast for you guys. Fry for 30 seconds.
Add to a pot. Boil for 20. Alright, so we're only supposed to fry this for a short while. That should be enough. Alright, so now we need to add it to a pot.
Oh,
Chicken broth, thyme, dried salt.
oh,
Interesting. So let's prepare this pot.
gonna put this here for a second.
I hope you are looking forward to breakfast.
Because I'm preparing some delicious breakfast for you, filled with lots of love.
Thyme dried.
Um, Salt and black pepper.
Get black pepper, salt.
There we go.
Now we add everything into the
Pot. Very carefully because this might tip over.
hang on.
Hang on. Get in. Come on. Come on. Please cooperate.
Get in there.
Come on. Okay. It mostly got in. Good ingredients.
Thank you for cooperating with me. And we boil this for
20 seconds.
only 20 seconds, huh?
That's fine. Oh,
Wow, this pot only needs to be boiled for so short, really.
alright.
Should be long enough. Okay, we're gonna put this here first.
And
Let's see. Add to a pan, clarify butter and bacon. Here we go.
bacon.
I assume this is enough bacon.
I think this is enough bacon. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oops.
Is this enough bacon? I'm going to assume it is.
Oh well.
Should be fine.
Right, now we cut the corn on the cob while that's cooking. Into pieces.
It is enough.
Get rid of the ends because you guys don't want that.
Right.
One more.
Like that.
You don't need that. You don't need that. Alright,
That should good.
and that should be bacon done.
I'll put this here first. I'll figure out what to do next.
Corn cut into pieces, add to pot, and add sour cream. This is sour cream, right?
Yeah, that's sour cream. So we need to add the corn on the cob to the pot.
Oops. Get in there.
Come on. Come on. Get in there. Good ingredients.
Now sour cream.
100 mils of sour cream. Oh.
Yep. That's all sour cream done. Boil for 60 seconds. Boil for 40 seconds.
Okay, so
We are approaching the end of it. Let me just get rid of the
liquids in this.
and we make sure that all the ingredients are in.
Get in there. Come on. Aren't you good?
Breathing soup.
Not breathing soup. I'm cooking right now.
I can put on this my swimsuit when I'm cooking.
Yeah? Gotta make sure that I'm wearing proper attire for the kitchen.
Should be long enough. Let's add the bacon.
There we go.
$40. Oh yeah, I forgot we need to add the scallops. Right, make sure we don't overcook this. We're gonna put this
Here first.
Now we need to fry the scallops for
50 seconds.
and then we'll
Serve the soup after we're done frying the scallops.
yeah. Each serving consists of soup, corn, potato, bacon, scallop.
And so hot.
Which bowl am I supposed to use?
Going to assume this bowl.
Oh, that's cooking. Where's the ladle?
Here we are. I can't tell if it's cooking or not.
Yep, it's cooking. Alright,
That's done. Now,
we have to make sure we get the proper proportions. Also, getting soup to the serving area is very difficult.
chat. I'm gonna try my best to get.
Oh god.
Uh,
You need to make sure I get
the carrots and onions and stuff. Where the hell are the onions? Fucking
Come on.
onions. Come on, cooperate.
Well, you guys don't mind if I give you extra.
Portions, right? In fact, that's good. Me giving you extra portions.
Maybe just get fucking more.
Bacon. And more potatoes.
There we go. And I'm going to give you guys some
Scallops. There we go.
and we're done.
Ta-da! delicious corn, scallop, bacon, chowder.
Now I need to very carefully transfer this over to. Oh god.
Be very careful with this, guys.
Might tip over it.
There we go. Okay. Oh. Alright, Chad.
This is some delicious corn, bacon, and scallop chowder. It's got some carrots and onions in it as well.
Enjoy. Ta-da. What happened? Why 0, chat? Why?
Why 0?
What do you think? What happened?
Too much black pepper, too much sour cream, too much. What are you talking about? What do you mean too much? Onion? Unwanted? What? You mean unwanted?
Wrong.
Too cold. What do you mean too cold? You were served hot. What? What do you mean unwanted product? You were supposed to serve it with. Huh? What? Okay, hang on a second, chat. Hang on a second. I call bullshit on that.
I call fucking bullshit.
Wait, I'm not supposed to give you guys carrots and onions? What? Why? What? Huh? I'm only supposed to cook the soup with carrots and onions, but after that, when I go to serve it, I'm supposed to not give you guys carrots. What? That's bullshit! You know what, chat? Fuck that rating. I'm giving you guys more food by giving you guys the carrots and onions. What kind of shitty game doesn't fucking... That's wasting food, goddammit. Yeah, I'm the guy that ate that is hanging on for dear life. What do you mean hanging on for dear life? I cook with... This soup tells me to cook carrots and onions with it. And then after that, I'm not supposed to give you guys the carrots and onions after I'm done cooking it? What the fuck is that bullshit? No, fuck that shit.
That's so wasteful. Fuck that.
Fuck that.
I don't care.
I don't fucking care. We're fucking... Fuck this shit! Fuck it! Fucking this game! Fucking... God damn it, chat! God fucking damn it! I fucking go out of my way to cook for you. I do all these amazing things for you. I fucking give you extra food. I give you the carrots. I give you the fucking onions, when even though the game doesn't tell me I'm not supposed to. Fuck this shit! Fuck it! I don't care anymore! Fuck it! Yeah. I fucking
Love you guys.
We're done.
With that shit. With fucking
Done with that shit.
fucking Fuck that shit. Fuck it. Fuck it. We're done.
We're done. We're done. Also,
I'm not sure if it was
something with the game or something outside of the game, but I was actually getting motion sick from that. Like, pretty fierce motion sickness.
I can feel my
Stomach.
growling from that. Oh well. Welcome to Rich People Food.
Yeah, well, they can keep it. If I'm cooking soup that has carrots and onion as part of the cooking process, I'm going to be giving you the fucking carrots and onions after we're done cooking the soup. Because I'm not gonna waste the carrots and onions. Are you gonna waste the carrots and onions? I don't know about you, but I'm not.
I'm not gonna waste it.
Oh, so give me
a second, guys. I'm burping.
I'm not gonna stream for that much longer, but I want to chill and
Chat with you guys a little bit before I call today's stream.
Alright. Let me
Just do this real quick.
yeah.
Hang on. Let me just. Alright. Now let me bring this up. There we go. Perfect timing. Hello, everyone. So that was a fucking wash.
That fucking game.
Turned out that game was
Rigged from the fucking start.
it fucking sabotaged me.
Telling me to fucking post it. Disguised scallops as
Potato dumplings, and then after that
it rigged it so that
it wanted me to be wasteful with food and not give you guys carrots and onions in the soup, even though the soup, as part of cooking it, called for us to boil the carrots and onions in the soup, but after that it wanted me to throw it away.
fuck that shit, I'm not gonna do that. Of course I'm gonna cook this, give you guys the carrots and onions if we
Or to cook the soup with it. Oh. Let me go to a well. There's a very specific wall that I want to go to, which is technically a wall that I'm gonna be using soonish or something, but
I have haven't taken the time to
do a proper photo shoot in this world. I actually wanted to. I'm actually thinking of doing a photo shoot here, like a full, proper photo shoot. You guys might remember this one. We were here last time to take the picture for today's stream. Seems like a nice wall that, would be that I could use to take some good pictures in of cooking and stuff. It's one of the few walls that has like fully functional cooking utensils. Very few walls have that.
Although right now I'm a little bit too short.
Hang on, let me switch to my taller avatar. Hang on. Here we go. There we go. Now I'm tall enough. Let me. What the fuck is this?
Oh.
What the hell?
The fuck? Why did I nearly crash?
Huh? That was strange. I'm not sure why I nearly crashed there. Oh yeah. I'm thinking of doing a full proper photo shoot in this one.
Can I actually clean these plates? Let me just...
That's it then.
Eh? What? That plate got cleaned?
Even those.
Oh. So... all you have to do is just...
I see what I'm doing, chat, to clean the plates.
Okay. This plate is already clean.
Look at this plate, chat.
You see this plate? It's dirty, right?
Apparently that's all you need to do to clean the plates around here. Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Normally I start with chat time before we go into stream, but
Today I figured we go directly into a game.
and
I mentioned this earlier, but I'm actually getting motion sick.
I'm feeling a little bit motion sick. I'm not sure why. I mean, I did have headache before starting stream today, but I took a painkiller.
I'm not sure if that game gave me motion sick. It's possible that that game might have given me motion sickness because of... I don't know if you guys could tell, but when... let me show you guys. When I was cutting the meat, using the knife, cutting the meat like that, my hand moved slow, like, I don't know, there was a delay in how my in-game hand moved, and it was a little bit jarring, so I wonder if that contributed a little bit to my motion sickness. And I'm just trying to recover a little bit. Trying to recover from the motion sickness that map was giving me.
Let me drink more coffee. I think drinking some water and coffee will help.
Drink water, Chan. Stay hydrated. That's water. And now time for coffee, chat. Everyone, grab your drinks. Remember, it doesn't matter what you're drinking as long as you're here for the moment, chat. It can be coffee, tea, beer, root beer, water, anything you have, chat. As long as you're here. Going in 3, 2, 1. Green bright. Cheers, everyone. So good. I needed that. That's good coffee. Finishing cleaning up, giving the animals water. I hope your chicken, whatever you did to the chicken, Alva, whatever you had to do with the chicken, I hope it went well and smoothly, relatively smoothly. Actually, Chad, I need you guys to help me test something. Something with this top. I need you guys to let me know if it looks good or bad. Alright, so this top now has some different shader settings on it. I'm trying to figure out if it looks good or not. Looking at it, I don't like how it has that yellow outline to it. That doesn't look right. Hang on a second, let me see what the normal top looks like. Does the normal top have that outline? Not so much. It's just this top that has that yellow outline. Yeah, I think that yellow outline doesn't look right. Need to adjust the setting a little bit before I use it in my photo shoot. Because I'm trying to prepare it for the photo shoot, so yeah. I'll mess with it a little bit more. I want to make sure I look perfect for you guys. Hope you guys don't mind me making sure I look just right. Probably one more cycle of adjustment and the top will be ready for doing a photo shoot. Hi Peanut, welcome. Kinda missed our gameplay earlier though. We're kinda just chilling right now in VR chat. I look amazing. Aw, thank you. Needs a little bit more adjustment though, but yeah. I look forward to being able to do a proper photo shoot at that top. Actually, in order to test the top fully, let's go to a different world. A different world, we'll see if that top serves that outline. If it does, then we know that I need to mess with the shader settings. If it doesn't, then it's the world technically, but I'm still going to mess with the shader settings to make sure it looks good, you know? Let's see. That was a world that a friend took me to the other day. Yeah, I forgot to save it. I might have forgotten to save it. Hang on. Was it this wall? Can't remember if it was this wall or not. I don't think it's that. It might be this. Let's try to test out the top in this world, chat. You just got home? Aw. Hope you had a good day out. You know? How am I doing today? I did okay. We had a nice little gameplay segment earlier where I was making breakfast for you guys. Making sure I cooked some delicious breakfast for you. Okay, let me see. Wait, no, it's not this wall, is it? No, this isn't the wall. Fuck, hang on.
Hang on.
This isn't the wall I'm looking for. That was a different wall. Let me see here.
I'm still trying to figure out how to use this
Fucking
new menu. Tandra's chill area.
Oh shit, wait, no.
This isn't the Tundra Labs home. This is a world by a furry named Tundra.
What the fuck?
Wait, wasn't there Tundra Labs? Well,
there was, wasn't there? Search for irrelevant.
save search. I know for a fact that Tundra Labs has a world, but
Why isn't it appearing?
is it still under Community Labs? That's why it's not appearing?
But no.
Or was it called something else? Damn it. recently visited. Is it still on my recently visited list?
I don't think so because it might have been too long ago.
Wait, is it this? Oh, wait, no, it wasn't.
It wasn't by Tandra. It was by someone else. Alright, we're going to the wall. Alright, here we are.
This is the wall I wanted to go to. Why am I hearing fucking...
That was weird. I don't know why I was hearing,
Like, you guys know that sound that...
that the, what's that,
dosimeter makes when...
it's trying to detect radiation. That's what I heard when I first loaded into this world.
Not sure why we were hearing that.
Immediately upon entering.
Yeah, let's find a good...
place where we can test out a
It's a bit too green here.
yeah, it's quite good, I think. Right, time for me to test out a top. See how it looks.
Alright.
Let's see, is there that yellow outline here? Not really. Maybe the yellow outline was just in that world? What do you guys think? Does the top look okay or no? I'm referring specifically to its coloring and stuff. Trying to make sure it looks right before I use it in a photo shoot. What do you guys think? Does that look good? Previously, my old settings made the top look a little bit too white. That's the best way to describe it, because pure white doesn't look good, you know.
Clothes don't tend to look pure white. Clothes have a slightly... well, not pure white color schemes.
So yeah, I darkened the top a little bit. Although technically, it's not the texture that's doing it, something else is doing the darkening. I think it looks good, Chad. There's also a nice pool here. Oops. My shirt got a bit wet. Hope you guys don't mind. One problem I'm noticing,
The...
apron is kind of showing through the water.
that's the unfortunate...
Problem with transparency shaders.
I need to try to see if there's anything I can do about that, but...
oh well. I wonder, is my top? How's my top look if I kneel down?
Yeah, you can kind of see through the...
Water as well, so
Okay, that's good to know.
it's good to know that it doesn't play nice with water. But it's fine, Chen. Slowly learning and testing things out. Yes, I know it might seem weird that I'm testing this out live, but
Oh well, we're doing it live, chat.
we do things live around here. Let's get out of the water. It's backing up.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's anything I can do to...
Make the to make the top not like show through the water.
It's just an unfortunate reality with transparency shaders and everything.
But it's fine now. No, incredible. No. I'm just trying to look my best for you guys. Yeah, plenty of people around me whom I'm learning from. If I look good, it's only because I learned from people who are way better at this than I am. I try my best to learn from them. Everything I do, I learn from studying from... Oh, I learn from the experts. Actually, I just realized something. I need to move this over here. Move chat away from my hand, and also...
I just realized my one of my controllers is about to run out of battery, so give me a second, chat.
Let me... This controller that is
Has the shitty battery. It's
breaking again. Give me 1 second.
let me
Get the power bank onto my arm. For anyone who's unaware,
one of my controllers have the battery is starting to become faulty. It only charges up to like 50% power now,
randomly,
and I need to attach a power bank to my wrist to get it to last as long as I want it to.
but thankfully, I have all these Rebirth Reality power banks
That I can use for this, so give me a second, chat. This is
not the correct wire. Is this the correct wire? This is too long, hang on.
which wire is the correct one? Is it this one?
No, not this one.
Eh? Where's the wire?
There it is. Alright. Give me a second, guys, while I plug in my power bank. Okay, there you go.
And I'll plug this in. There we go. Let me tighten the power bank just a little bit.
I'm really sorry.
Okay, so it's sitting on my wrist.
loosely, but it's not too loose that it's flopping around. Great view. Oh. Did you guys get a view just now? What type of view were you guys getting? I wonder, were you guys being sus? You returned? Welcome back, Naomi. Welcome, welcome. I'm currently chilling in VR chat after I rage quit the cooking game because apparently the game expects me to be wasteful with food and I didn't want to do that. Hope everything's going okay over there. You know what, chat? I just realized something. I'm wearing boots. And it's indoors. That's not good, chat. I should get rid of them. You guys wanna help me take off my boots? I did cook for you earlier. You guys mind? Come on. There you go. Oops. There you go. Yeah, no boots indoors. At least not when we're in a home. Can put on boots later if you guys want me to. I love my models. Aw, thank you. I did put a lot of work into them, but it's very noob work. Just trying to learn from people around me who are way, way, way sexier. Actually, thinking of going to a different world because I have a feeling that this world looks okayish, but there are probably better worlds we could hang out in, right? Yeah, this world looks a little bit dreary. Let's go to a different world, chat. Where should we go to? Something that's a little bit brighter. There was a world I visited recently that was really nice, but unfortunately I'm not a VIP in that world, so I can't access the room in that world that has everything I want. Let's see. Let's try here. There's something I want to testing this world, chat. The last time I came here while streaming, it started lagging me out, and I went to see if it still lags me out. We all have to start somewhere. I know, but yeah, my models are very kit bashed. Lots of parts taken from so many different places. Try my best to look good for you guys. Hi. So let's see. Is the FPS in this world really low?
Oh, hang on.
Hang on. This world has music playing. Is there a...
Button I can press to get rid of the music.
Yes, there is, but I'm too tall for this world.
Let me...
Hang on. Switch to my standard avatar. There we go. Right now I'm closer. Let me
media.
Alright. Now I can turn on full volume again, so then without the media playing. Hi. Oh, the lighting in this world is so much better. I love the lighting in this world.
Let's see, where's a good view?
Oh, this is perfect. Yeah, this is perfect. Gonna put you guys over here. Hope you guys don't mind me having more chill vibes now that we're done with the cooking stream. That game gave me a little bit of motion sick, so I need to relax a little bit. Well, I let my body recover. I'm actually surprised that that game made me motion sick, but yeah, I have a feeling it was due to the fact that my hands moved at a slight delay, so that probably made me feel a little bit motion sick because I'm moving my hands IRL and the game was just slow in how it moved my hands, so yeah. Actually, Chad, I was actually hang on, testing 1 2 1 2 3 4. Hello. Is it just me or is my voice low? I can't tell. Hang on. Is my voice low? Testing 1 2 3 4. Chat, does my voice sound lower than normal? I'm a bit worried that my voice sounds lower than normal because fucking Windows keeps messing with my audio settings, so I'm not sure if My voice is at the level it's supposed to be. Testing 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hello. Yeah, it feels like my voice is a little lower than it should be. Hang on. Let me mess with this. Fuck. If it is lower than it's supposed to be though, I'm not sure how long it's been that way. That's annoying. I'm gonna blame Windows. Fucking Windows Update. Messing with me and messing with my audio settings all the fucking time. Oh well. Nothing I can do about it though. Let me drink more water. I'm thirsty, Jen. And just stay hydrated. It's important to stay hydrated. Controller's giving me a very weird signal. I don't know what to make of it. Are you charging or no? Fuck, my controller isn't charging. Hang on.
Is this controller's battery becoming so bad that it's no longer
charging? Also the power bank? Hang on a second.
Oops.
Hang on. Don't worry about it.
I'm fine.
Hang on.
Let me just make sure that this is okay. Yep, it's fine.
Okay, now it's showing it's charging. This controller, I swear. I don't know what's going on with it.
But right now I'm trying to fix my
wire instead.
Well, grab your drinks, everyone. Remember, it doesn't matter what you're drinking, as long as you're here for the moment. It can be coffee, tea, beer, root beer,
water, anything you have, Jen. As long as you're here. Going in 3, 2, 1. Cream pie. Cheers, everyone. Oh, by the way, guys. Do any of you guys miss me talking about the stuff that we did with Yuri? for anyone who missed me talking about it, a friend of mine, Yuri from Japan, your chat friend, visited Malaysia, and he took a bunch of pictures. Did you guys see the pictures? I technically talked about the pictures last stream, but did you guys miss it? You guys miss me talking about the pictures? Do you guys want to see it? Let me show you guys the pictures again, if you guys want. So hang on. I need to increase volume a little bit. There we go. Actually, wait, no. Volume's a bit too low now. Let me reduce it down a little bit. There we go. The pictures is going to be mostly about food. You guys want to see the pictures of our food? He already mentioned that he was going to create a... Yeah, he created the... channel with the... He's going to put the photos in, but he didn't actually put photos yet. Let me show you guys the delicious food we all ate together. Okay, let me just grab the pictures. Come on, where's the other photos? Here they took. Right here. Here. And then oh, it is actually making me hungry. But it's fine. It's fine. Oops! Why did the camera zoom in? Ah, god damn it. That wasn't supposed to happen. Sorry about that, chat. The usual VRC messing up the camera. Okay. Let me show you guys what we had, what we ate. Hang on. We just put that there. And why are the camera controls gone? Hello?
Camera controls? Why are you gone?
There you go. Let's turn that and allow transparency. There we go. And Let me bring this over here. There we go. And so yeah, chat. This is the delicious food we ate. Me, Yerde, Sloppy, Numi, and Aoi. Yeah, lots of guys on VR chat went to eat a lot of delicious food together. We took Yerde around to eat all this nice food. On the first day, we went to eat this.
I've forgotten what type of fish this is actually. I just remember it was I think it was it sea bass?
Or
It wasn't grouper, it wasn't cod, it was something else. A pretty common fish.
I forgot what type of fish it was.
But it was cooked in
Some spices and chili.
it's really tasty, although
I don't usually eat fish much because of a bad experience that I had with fish when I was a kid. Long story short,
I got a fish bone stuck in my throat.
once when I was a kid, and
I had to go to the hospital to get the bone out.
so yeah, I didn't eat much fish. I ate a little bit of it, but not much.
This over here is a plate of tofu, a sizzling tofu. It was very, very nice.
Very tasty.
Tofu is basically bean curd.
Soybean curd. Very, very nice, really tasty.
This was a best way to describe it is a chicken cooked in Chinese wine with some mushrooms in it. But how do I describe this? There's a thing in Chinese food where how do I explain this? The more expensive the food, the more expensive the ingredient added to the food, the more tasteless it is.
the ingredient is
There's this weird thing in Chinese culinary tradition where
we add a lot of
there are ingredients we seek out and add into food that technically doesn't taste like anything. It's tasteless, but it's more expensive just because of the prestige of eating it. Things like abalone, things like certain types of mushrooms, things like shark's fin, and other stuff.
That's added to the food.
There's technically flavorless. There's not much flavor. There's actually no flavor to it, but
It's added in just because it's expensive, and
because of that, it drives up the price, and we eat it because just because we believe it's worth it. That's the best way to describe it.
this chicken,
It's a little bit of that. The chicken wasn't really seasoned at all. The mushrooms that were cooked in didn't really add much flavor to it. The only thing that added flavor to this dish was actually the Chinese wine.
it was a Chinese wine chicken dish.
And there was some herbs in it, but otherwise almost all the flavor of this dish came from the Chinese wine.
And yeah, So it's
chicken cooked in Chinese wine. That's pretty much it.
as far as flavor goes.
And then this
Dish over here. This dish is a
is an egg dish. And technically, you guys can see the lettuce that the bit of lettuce is sitting on. Technically, this dish is supposed to be. Oh, whoa! Why did I?
I'm not sure why I moved. A strange part here.
Technically, this dish is supposed to be. The way we're supposed to eat this particular dish, Chad.
Yes, we're supposed to.
Hang on.
Yeah, I need to recalibrate.
Because I think my tracker moved.
And I hit it just now.
Give me a second. Let me recalibrate real quick.
Give me a second. Alright, there we go. Right, yeah, okay. Now back to what I was saying.
Yeah, we're supposed to take some of the egg and the stuff over here and wrap it in leaves, in lettuce leaves that are given to us, and then eat it.
Yeah.
Just pop the whole thing into our mouth. It's almost like if you guys are familiar with some Korean food where you take pork and some little strips of pork and some other stuff and wrap it in lettuce and then eat the whole thing.
That's similar-ish.
Showing off the relationship? Yeah.
Technically, we talked about this last stream, but I'm redoing it for anyone who missed it.
But yeah, this is an egg plus carrots and crab meat and unfortunately
Shark's fin.
I thought that the shark's fin in this dish was fake shark's fin, but according to my parents, when I asked them later, they said it was real shark's fin. If I had known that this was real shark's fin, I would have asked if they could leave out the shark's fin and just replace it, I don't know, with more crab meat or something.
This is just a hang-up that I have, but yeah, I try to avoid eating shark's fin whenever possible.
Not because it's unhealthy or anything, but because it's... I'm a registered scuba diver and I care about ocean conservation, and shark's fin is really, really bad for ocean conservation.
So yeah, this is shark's fin, and if I know about it, I would have asked them to leave out the shark's fin. Oh well.
Actually, hang on a second, I think. I need to mess with this setting a little bit because I'm adjusting my
audio settings, and I think that was too much. I bring down my mic just a little bit.
Eating crab is okay? Well, crab is not really an endangered species,
As far as I know.
but sharks are. And the thing about shark's fin is that the way that shark's fin is typically harvested for this is that all they do is they catch the shark, they cut off the fin, and then they throw the shark back. They don't even use the rest of the shark, so it's very wasteful.
And yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier about you know how Chinese culinary tradition they add ingredients that technically don't have a taste,
And
it doesn't actually add anything to the dish because the ingredients doesn't have a flavor. They just add it in and make it more expensive because of the prestige. It's done purely due to prestige. Shark's fin falls under the category. Shark's fin has no taste at all. You eat it, yes, it does have a texture. It's chewy, It's almost like a chewy, gelatinous texture to the meat, but other than that, shark fin does not have a flavor at all. So yeah, it's really wasteful. So if I'd known that this was real shark fin rather than fake shark fin, I would have asked if they could leave the shark fin up, but I didn't know, so yeah. But other than the fact that this dish has real shark fin in it, the egg and the crab and everything else in it was really tasty. Technically, I came to the same restaurant again with my family like 2 days after, and my family ordered this same dish, but they requested that they leave out the shark fin, and the restaurant was like, okay, no shark fin. So yeah. But this is just me, my particular like hang up regarding eating shark fin. Just because I'm a registered scuba diver and all that. You guys don't have to care about it so much if you guys don't care, but it's just me. But yeah, this is really, really nice. Actually, really tasty. I'm not sure if you guys know, but egg is one of my favorite foods and ingredients. So yeah, any kind of egg dish, I really, really like. And this egg dish is almost like a crab omelette or sauce with lettuce. It was so good, chat. So good. And when I ate it with my family, they replaced the shark fin with just small crab. And like I mentioned, shark fin has no taste, so it didn't make any difference at all. As far as flavor goes, it was still just as good. Egg, yeah, I love eggs. Eggs is one of my favorite dishes. I love almost all egg dishes, so yeah. Yeah, this was the first restaurant I went to. Lots of really, really nice food. Me, Yerde, Aoi, Numi, and Sloppy. And to eat this, so good, chat. Next up, technically this was just me and Yerde going to eat this, but me and Yerde went to eat this. This is not a picture we took, but the dish actually looks exactly like this. This is a dish called nasi lemak. Nasi lemak directly translates in means fat rice in English, and it is a fragrant rice cooked with coconut oil. Very, very fragrant coconut oil, served with, most typically served with cucumbers, egg, and roasted peanuts and fried anchovies, and sambal. Sambal is a type of chili. It's a local chili that is quite spicy. In fact, it's very, very spicy. But the chili is served on the side, so you can add as much or as little chili as you want to. It's commonly served. It's also commonly eaten with other dishes on the side, some kind of meat. It can be chicken curry, beef rendang. Beef rendang is another type of local dish. Sometimes you can get some squid curry, but specifically the restaurant we went to serves it with fried chicken, and it was so good, so good. Oh my god, this is making me hungry actually. Looking at this is one of the most popular restaurants for nasi lemak around here. It's so good, chat. You guys have no idea. The restaurant we went to eat this only serves breakfast and lunch, and it's busy throughout the entire day, from the time it opens to the time it closes at around, I think, 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. It never stops seeing customers. In fact, during lunch break, when all the office workers go to eat it, it is completely full, jam-packed. It is so good. Oh, in fact, looking at this right now, I feel like I want to go and eat it again, but it's fine. I'm gonna control myself. Also, it's closed right now. But yeah, this is nasi lemak. I believe Cass tried to cook nasi lemak once. Our good friend Cass from Canada tried to cook nasi lemak, and I could not say anything for the flavor because I wasn't there, but looking at it, it seemed to, at least appearance wise, it looked really good. But yeah, it's fragrant coconut rice with some diced cucumbers, egg, fried peanuts and anchovies, sambal with a choice of meat on the side, some kind of protein usually. But in this case, it was fried chicken. Also, technically, even though this food is really nice and it's a staple of local cuisine, this is very unhealthy. Beef rendang is quite fattening and oily. The chicken curries and squid curries can be fairly oily as well, and the rice is cooked with coconut oil, and it's really bad for cholesterol technically. So yeah, even though a lot of people eat this daily, it's technically not that healthy for you if you eat it that often. So you gotta try to control how often you eat this. It's not healthy, but every now and then, like once a week, it's okay. But it's not a food that you should eat like every day, because that will give you a lot of cholesterol problems in the long run. Unfortunately. But yeah, either way, it's still really tasty. I took your day to eat this. Me and your day went to eat this together. Everyone else was a little bit busy at the time, but so yeah, we went to eat this for brunch. And after that, this was technically only me having this coffee, but I had this coffee while waiting to meet up with everyone. We were supposed to meet up to go to have some food after, and Aoi recommended this cafe where I was waiting for everyone, and this is a double shot mocha, and it was so good, chat. I'm not sure if you guys can see just how strong the chocolate is, but it was so good. Stronger than I expected it to be. The coffee was nice and strong, and the chocolate they made it using 75% chocolate. Since it was stronger than I expected it to be, I probably would have put some just a little bit of sugar, just a tiny bit of sugar, maybe half a teaspoon of sugar into it, because the double shot of espresso and the 75% chocolate made it a little bit too bitter. But yeah, I think if I put just maybe a half a teaspoon of sugar, then it would have been perfect. If I go there again next time, I'll probably add a little bit of sugar, just a tiny bit. I'm the kind of person who doesn't drink much sugar at all. When I drink coffees, I normally only add like 1 teaspoon of sugar, and even then it's just a small You know how when people add teaspoon of sugar, there tends to be a mountain of sugar in the teaspoon. I only put like half the mountain of sugar that's on my teaspoon of sugar. It's very, very low. So yeah. I add very little sugar into my drinks. Even my mochas. Even my mochas where I mix my own cocoa powder with chocolate. Even those, I do 1-to-1, 2 teaspoons of mocha and 2 teaspoons of sugar, and that's it. That's all the sugar I add into my coffee. But yeah, this coffee is there's a place called Coffee Academic. Yeah, very nice. Highly recommend it. The only problem is that this place, I don't know why, but this place is following a trend that's been going around here locally where they give you a little receipt with a QR code and you're supposed to scan it, and I'm like, why? Why do you do that? Why? I hate those fucking restaurants with a QR code you're supposed to scan because I don't have data in my phone. So I don't know how getting my iPad out, getting into the local Wi-Fi, and then scanning into the QR code. That's so annoying. I hate those QR code things. Just let me order by speaking to a person. God damn it. That's my only complaint about the place. But other than that, the coffee is really, really good. Really nice. I kind of expected you to order food on the side as well, but oh well. I just went there for a coffee because we were waiting to meet up with everyone, so yeah. I had myself some delicious coffee. A nice change from having coffee at home. And then last but not least, we had this. Final big out thing with Yuri. And Numi and Sloth and Aoi and everyone. We had this a steamboat dinner. It was actually really, really, really good. We ordered 2 soup bases. A pork collagen, basically it's a pork soup base, and something called mala. Mala is a local spice that is really, really, really strong. I don't know how to describe it. Why soup? Yeah. Me personally, I went for the pork broth, but the others wanted to have some spicy soup as well. So yeah, we ordered this mala. Mala is a local spice that's how do I describe it? It's definitely pepper. And it's definitely spicy, but it's definitely very strong, but it's got a very weird numbing sensation to the spice. If you were to accidentally bite into a mala peppercorn in your mouth, it almost numbs your mouth where the peppercorn was bitten into. Like when I tried the mala soup, I accidentally got a mala peppercorn into my mouth, and I bit into it in my mouth on my left side, and when I did that, a spot in the left side of my mouth just became numb. I could tell that there was spice there in my mouth. It was a spicy sweetness in my mouth, but at the same time, that part of my mouth also became numb, and it was such a weird feeling. Like if you guys ever went to a dentist and the dentist jabbed the needle into your gums or something to numb it, that was the numbness that I felt was similar to that, but at the same time it was spicy. A spicy numbness. It was really, really weird. And it persisted for a while. It took like, I think, 10 minutes before the numbness went away. I drank some water. I tried to wash away the numbness with some pork broth and meats and stuff. So, yeah. You can't see any of the meats here, but we had a lot of really delicious meat. Like this hot pot. We ordered pork, lamb, beef. It was so good, Chad. We also got some fish balls and pork balls. It was really nice. Very nice. Now you're hungry. You get some food? I'm getting hungry too, actually. I'm probably gonna have some food later after I'm done with stream. After all, I already fed you guys earlier when we did the cooking section of the stream. Once I'm done with stream, I'm gonna go and feed myself. Unless you guys want to feed me. You guys want to feed me? Chat? But yeah. This is really nice hot pot. Unfortunately, it wasn't one of those all-you-can-eat hot pots. It was a hot pot where you had to order specific dishes, so it was fairly pricey. But I kinda already knew it was gonna be. It could be that pricey, so yeah, I made sure to prepare money in advance. But yeah, it was so good, chat. So good. The pork broth event. Oh, something. I'm not sure if you already took pictures of this. Let me check to see if he took pictures of the end of the pork, the end of the hot pot. Let me see here. Oh, this was after. Wait, no, that was before. Where's the photos of the hot pot? Wait, let me see here. Can you see the noodles here? No, unfortunately you can't see the noodles. Okay, the thing about hot pot, chat, is that normally after you're done cooking all of that delicious meat and mushrooms and all that stuff in the soupy broth, the soup is going to absorb all of the delicious flavors. You're supposed to finish off with a plate of noodles, usually yimin, a type of noodle called yimin, and then we cook the noodles in that broth that's filled with all of the flavors of meat and whether beef or lamb or pork or whatever, all of that soup that's filled with all those flavors. We will cook noodles in that and eat the noodles as absorb all those delicious flavors as the last thing. So yeah, we also had noodles with this. Are you guys eating jams, jam and toast? No, this isn't jam. This is a spice called mala. Okay, I should explain the bit. Give me a second, let me clear my throat. Sorry, so this isn't jam, this is the spice. Mala. Here's the thing about mala. mala is so spicy that what you're supposed to do with it is that you cook the meat in the mala portion of the soup, right? And then when you get the meat from the soup, you're supposed to dab the meat on the bread because the bread is going to absorb most of the oils of most of the oils, which is where all the spiciness is, or at least a lot of spiciness. You're supposed to absorb the oil away from the meat and then eat the meat.
Because and yeah, you're supposed to do that. If you don't do that,
your entire mouth will probably start burning and feel like it's going numb.
because of the mala. That's why the bread is there.
The bread is there to absorb the all of the chili oil.
And then yeah.
So child's play, mala is actually no joke. Like I mentioned earlier, when I bit into a mala peppercorn by accident, my mouth, that section of my mouth started becoming numb. You just spicy. Of course, you don't have to you don't have to absorb most of the oil on the bread. If you don't want to, you can just eat the meat without absorbing the bread, but the bread is there and you are meant to use it to absorb most of the chili.
Accidentally, yeah. Accidentally.
I tried some of the mala and I bit into a mala peppercorn by accident, and yeah, part of my mouth went numb and it took me like
10 minutes before my mouth recovered from that.
That's fine. So at the end of it all, they gave us this
drink here. This drink
is a little shot glass, and this drink is actually I think some kind of peach lemon lime drink. It was very nice and really cool. It was a sour drink, and this is something they give you at the end of your meal. What you're supposed to do with it is you're supposed to take this and down it. You're supposed to like down it all at once and drink it as a shot glass, but me personally, I don't really like icy cold drinks and stuff, so I drank it slowly, like just in 2 or 3 gulps I managed to get it down. But it was a really nice lemon lime peach drink, and this was given to you to help settle your stomach, because hot pot, you eat a lot of soup, you eat a lot of meats, and you eat a lot of noodles. It's really heavy, and this drink was supposed to settle your stomach after it's all said and done. It's almost like a dessert. You drink this and suddenly your mouth is filled with that nice refreshing sour flavor of a lemon lime peach drink, and it travels down to your stomach and you're like,
oh wow, I feel refreshed. Suddenly I don't feel like my stomach is too full anymore.
That's the effect that this thing is supposed to give you. So
yeah, even though the restaurant is really pricey,
they give a really good customer service. The other side of the pick year they took.
yeah. This is
the lemon lime drink. Is so good.
I really enjoyed it.
Also, one thing we did while Your Day was here, I can't really show it because I believe there's pictures that show our faces, but we also went to sing in karaoke.
Numi tried to stream the karaoke, but Numi's phone microphone was unfortunately really bad, so yeah. Sadly, Numi couldn't stream the karaoke that we did.
But Numi tried to stream it for a little bit. I believe I already recorded some of the karaoke stuff as well, though. Maybe I can look through it and if any is fine to share, I might share it on my Discord or something. I haven't looked through it yet though, so yeah. But yeah, this is all the delicious food we had. The guy went to the same brothel twice in a day. Yeah, they actually talked about the brothel experience. I'm amazed that Yuri was willing to admit that he went to a brothel. Yeah, he went to a brothel. He's really brave. Yeah, that or he's really thirsty. Oh well. Yeah, Yuri went to a brothel. And technically one of the other guys also was trying to gently ask anyone if they were willing to go to the brothel with him after he heard Yuri talking about it. This was when Yuri was still around, one of the other guys we were with who came up with this. He was like, want to... yeah, he was trying to convince someone else to go to the brothel with him. But nobody else wanted to go. If only because... Hang on, my ear's a little bit itchy. Sorry, yeah. No, the other guys wanted to go because it was really pricey. And also, they were scared of STDs. Yuri wasn't scared of STDs at all. Yuri just went. Yuri was so gung-ho. He just wanted to experience it. So yeah. None of us went though. Although he did point out to us where the bottle was. Let me drink some water, chat. To stay hydrated. It's important to stay hydrated, chat. Right? Sure you guys stay hydrated, okay? Now, do I have any more coffee? Let me see. Last of coffee. Everyone, grab your drinks. Remember, it doesn't matter what you're drinking as long as you're here for the moment. It can be coffee, tea, beer, root beer, water, anything you have, Chen. As long as you're here. Going in 3, 2, 1. Green party. Cheers, everyone. Okay. Oh. Oh. Ah, it's good coffee. You didn't nut during the first 2 visits? Yeah, apparently not. Can't imagine paying that much money and then you don't nut in the end. But oh well. Hi. I think I'm okay though. I'm not interested in going to a brothel. No amount of sexiness at the brothel can make up for VR-chan. VR has kind of spoiled me, Chan. Oh well. Yeah, brothels? Yeah. Just talking about a Japanese friend Yuri who apparently went to a brothel 3 times. No, he went to it twice and then he got yeah, he went to it twice. And he told us all about it.
Your day is really, really brave.
Yeah. That was all the delicious food we had.
During your day's trip. Yeah. A lot of really expensive food, but oh well. I'm okay with it. It's one of those once in a lifetime things. You want to be able to treat your Japanese friend to all the delicious food. I mean, again, anytime soon, so yeah. Your friend wanted to bring you to whatever.
Isn't your friend Muslim? Your friend wanted to bring you a brothel and he's Muslim? Okay. Apparently a lot of people are really advanced here.
I think I'm okay with just for your chat though.
Chat. I'm wondering if I should call it a stream right now because can you see my hand is shaking?
I'm actually starving.
Can you guys see my hand shaking holding the camera? Yeah, I'm starving, chat.
You guys mind if I call it a stream here and go get something to eat, chat? I'm actually really, really hungry. I've been hungry for the past, I think, 2 hours.
You feed him pork and got him drunk.
Oh boy, oh no.
Well, when it comes time for him to fast for next Hari Raya, he's gonna have to pay some penance.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, champ. I think I'll end stream here.
I'll end stream here. Thank you everyone for being here. Whether you're looking or chatting. I love you.
Oh god, I am starving.
Hope you guys enjoyed today's cooking stream.
Yeah. Probably trash tier Giri stream.
With me and my cooking.
If you guys enjoyed, I hope to see you guys next time.
Alright.
Remember to hit that like and subscribe button down there and click the bell if you haven't already, chat.
As usual, we're going to thank my amazing extra supporters.
Thank you so much to Lucky, Crab, Raz.gov, Oxy, and Maka for always giving me so much big tip energy.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. And next up, thank you
to Leah, Maka, Sakito, Kylon, Lucky, and Shu. Technically this bot should say Patreon and Fansly, but I keep forgetting to update this board. I should do that. I'll do that after I eat food, chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for subscribing to my Patreon.
And eventually, I wonder who's gonna be my first Fansly
subscriber. The moment someone's my first Fansly subscriber, your names are gonna go into this bar as well. But oh, thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
I already know what my next photo shoot is going to be, so
be sure to look out for some nice content coming soon.
I already know which one I'm gonna use and what the topic of the photo shoot is gonna be. The way my Fansly and Patreon works, they have the same content. the way it works is that most of all of my content that I deem good enough to be shown to you guys, I give out for free. I post it on Twitter, I post it on my Discord, I post it on Fansly as just follow a tier, so anyone and everyone can see all of the really good content that I feel, you know, it's worth sharing. But whenever I do photo shoots and stuff, there's always a lot of photos that in the end don't make the cut. For any photos that don't make the cut for any particular reason, whether they don't fit in the overall set that I'm putting out, or there's a mistake in the photos or whatever, I release it as a cheap $5 subscriber tier in Patreon Fansly. And yeah, those are all the raw photos. I didn't color correct them, I didn't do anything to them. If you guys want any of those raw photos of the pictures that I do end up releasing after some color editing, or photos that don't make the cut for whatever reason, if you guys want to see those, my Patreon and Fansly subscriber tiers would have those. And it's just a way for me to reward people for supporting me on Patreon and Fansly. You guys don't have to feel like pressured to support me there if you guys don't want to, because yeah, all of the good stuff, you guys get it for free. I feel like I don't want to put a barrier between you guys and me, our interaction, you know. I like to make sure that everyone gets to interact with me and the good content for free, so yeah. Alright, Chan, oh boy. Oh my good stuff. I'm the good stuff. Oh no. Oh, I just try to make myself look really good for you guys. I do it all for you. After all, I won't be able to do this if you guys weren't here. So yeah, yes to all of you guys. Love you all. Thank you so much for being here. See you guys again soon, alright? Oh, I'm starving. I really need food. I'm so hungry, Chan. Alright, see you guys again soon, alright? Bye, y'all. One last kiss forever. Good night, all. Mm-hmm.